Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Junk Baller Podcast. My name is Michael Greenwood, and I'm here with my good friend, as always, Kevin. How you doing?
Doing good, sir. I am doing good. I'm glad that my hat finally arrived on time, just in time for the podcast.
It looks great. Do you want to explain what the hat is? Because obviously they can't see what it is. I can,
Yes.
but they can't.
So, there's a team, the Somerset Patriots, who is the AA affiliate of the Yankees, and there's a lot of personality in minor league teams that we've discussed on the podcast before. So they've done alternates beginning last year, which they had the jerseys, hats, the whole gamut, where they renamed themselves the Jersey Diners. So they just released this hat about a month or two ago, where it's got the state of New Jersey shaped as a waffle, and then you have like two eggs right next to it.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
It looks really, and the colors kind of remind you of like diner-ish. It's got like a vibrant pink, a light blue, and some accent with it in white. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. It took forever. How long did it take?
Like a month.
Yeah.
I kept emailing them. I'm like, okay, it's been 3 weeks. And I guess they just had shipping issues because it was coming from overseas.
Yeah. It's a nice hat. I also got a hat, but I'm not wearing it right now. I got the L7 Weenie hat from, I think it's a baseballism hat. When I showed it to some people, they're like, what the heck does that mean? And if you don't know what L7 Weenie, it's literally 3 hot dogs or whatever in the shape of L7. So it's an L7 Weenie from the Sandlot. And I love the hat. I saw it. I was like, I have to find this hat. Couldn't find it. I had to buy it off eBay, and I couldn't find it anywhere because they were sold out. But so that's our little introduction. We've got some hats that have come across our way. But right now, we are going to this podcast is all about what Kevin and I think is going to happen to the division winners in baseball this year. Opening day is, if you're listening to this, opening day is, let's see, right? We're recording this on Saturday, March 22nd. It's 5 days away. Now, 2 games have already happened. We can get into that for a little bit if you wanted to, because I don't think that's a good idea to have those games count per se. Yeah. But we are 5 days away from opening day, and we have our predictions of who we think are going to win the divisions. Who are the division winners? Kev was going to go through the AL, and I'm going to go through the NL, and we're going to give an in-depth analysis of why we think it's going to happen. So we'll just get right into it?
I think so.
All right, Kev, why don't you do the AL West? We'll start with that.
All right, well, I guess I'm going to start from the bottom. And there is quite a bottom to the AL West this year. What's a good thing I could say about the Angels? Trout's back.
Mike Trout's back, and he's playing a different position.
And at least Rendon is happy he doesn't have to play baseball.
Oh, my God.
And Kelly Jensen could close games if he ever gets the chance to have save situations.
That's true.
Yeah. But let's not be around the bush. This team stinks.
Yep, it does.
Ohati may be young, but he's not Pudge. Their starting shortstop and their third baseman are already hurt. The unfortunate Kikuchi got demoted from Houston to Anaheim, which sucks for him.
Demoted, but a $20 million payday.
It was a raise, but
parade.
also a demotion. It was like I guess you call it like a lateral move.
Yeah.
Because you got raised, but you also went to a worse team.
Yeah.
And Soler is not the hitter that he was back in years ago in 2019, I think it was.
Yeah.
Maybe Tim Anderson can get into another fight because, heck, he hasn't been the same player since fighting Jose Ramirez. So maybe that'll help rejuvenate his career. But other than that, what is there to say about this poverty franchise that's probably run by a bunch of ex-Disneyland janitors?
Oh, my gosh. You go easy on them. Goodness gracious.
It's deserved.
It is. They suck.
I just wanted to talk about them briefly and get them out of the way because the other teams are interesting to talk about, and the Angels I look at them and I don't have much to say.
Yeah, there are 2 things that are good with the Angels: Mike Trout and Ron Washington. Ron Washington, I love Ron. Is a great manager, but if he can turn that team around, I don't know who else can turn that team around. That front office is terrible.
Yeah,
but yeah, continue. Angels don't deserve much time.
Well, from one California team to another, what's worse than having 2 cities in your team name, like the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim? Having none.
None.
So the A's, I was about to call them the Oakland A's because that's just that's something I'm used to saying.
Correct.
They're entering the 2025 season playing in a minor league park. But where there is darkness, there is glimmers of hope because it's not all bad with the A's. And it comes from their young roster. I've been reading many people hyping up the A's a lot this year as the surprise team. And I also saw that there was a poll of MLB players that said they picked the A's to be the surprise team in baseball for this year. And a glance at the potential talent does give hope.
Yep.
I mean, leading the way in that lineup is Brent Rooker, hit 39 home runs last year. And he was playing hurt too. So
should have been a Philly.
If he and he's going to be healthy hopefully this year, so hopefully that production will continue. Zach Geloff, he's coming back from injury too. They brought in Yankees legend Miguel Andujar and another Yankee legend Gio Urshela and another Yankee legend Luis Severino. So they're just poaching Yankees legends left and right.
Put some respect on their names.
You'll see throughout this podcast, whenever I mention a Yankee or maybe an occasional Philly, I'll mention them as legends. So like Yankee legend, Phillies legend, to mention that they.
No matter how good or bad you are, they'll be a legend.
Yes. Some more power from Lawrence Butler in that outfield. And I think Severino will help them this year to complement Jeffrey Springs. And how can you forget about Mason Miller, who was definitely very exciting last year?
Should have been a Philly.
Who shouldn't be a Philly?
Any Met.
Really? Any Met? You wouldn't want, like, Soto?
Only Met that I don't think that I would like is Alonso, probably. And McNeil and Nimmo.
So allow their best players.
Three of their players. Oh, Alvarez, too. Let's get back on topic.
Sorry. The team does have a lot of guys with potential, but I'm not sure if they're ready to break out just yet. Especially given the chaotic state of the franchise right now. I mean, they're homeless technically, so they're definitely better than the Angels. But I think they're a year or two away from really breaking out. But if they do surprise, I wouldn't be surprised myself.
Gotcha. So you got them in fourth place.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The top three. I mean, I guess it wasn't super easy to figure this out. But I think after I thought it through, I'm like, okay, maybe this makes more sense logically. And I'm not putting this team in third place because I absolutely hate them, even though that doesn't help. But I do think that they are the least of the three I'm about to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And seriously, it wasn't too long ago that the Astros were juggernauts.
Yep.
Even last year when they got crazy hot in June and the Mariners just fell apart. We were like, great, here we go again. We were reveling in how bad they were doing.
It was great. Yeah. It was great.
And then when we get to July, it's just like,
they're back.
Yes. But when you thought they would move on past the Tigers, they got knocked down in the first round.
That was great.
And to be honest, looking at the team this year, they're not a better team than they were in 2024.
No.
Altuve's now in the outfield, and if you've been watching clips of him try and field fly balls in spring training, it's been a bit comical.
I think that's an understatement. He's been awful.
Yeah. I mean, it's a new position. He's a infielder.
Yeah.
So moving to the outfield, there's gonna be some trouble.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes, I suppose. Bregman, Tucker, and Verlander are all gone, and so far they haven't gotten a ton back in return, apart from Christian Walker.
Yeah.
And Isaac Paredes.
Yeah.
Who are good, but they're not the same as who you lost. They definitely downgraded, I think, in who they got back. The upside is that you still have Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah.
Who I'm sure they'll DH so he can be kept healthy, because that was another issue with them last year was the injuries. They still have a solid rotation, Framer, Valdez, Brown, Blanco, and their bullpen didn't have the worst year, though Hader definitely had a down year. And in the postseason, they were a big part of the reason why they lost to Detroit. Overall, they're not who they once were, and I think that'll be reflected in a third-place finish for them.
They lost Presley, too.
Yes, I forgot about Presley as well.
Yeah, he's now a Cub.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll leave my comments for after.
Yeah, no worries. So to me, the top two were a bit of a toss-up. But the 2023 World Series champions underwhelmed last year, to say the least. They had injuries galore. They didn't make the playoffs the year after winning it all. And do you know that they're the 12th team in 25 years to win the World Series and not make the playoffs the next year?
Jeez.
It shows you how much parity there is in baseball right now,
Yeah.
or just, I guess, in this century. The hope is that they'll come into 2025, they'll be back to being contenders. And when healthy, they're a darn good team, particularly in the infield. Simeon and Seager. You can't really lose with those two as long as they're there playing and healthy. Josh Smith will be back as a utility option. Jake Berger at first in the Marlins' quest to get rid of anyone good. He's there now. And I would expect the outfield to be solid with Wyatt Langford. And despite struggles from Garcia, I think they're still a decent outfield. It's not a huge thing. The key to their success this year is going to be the pitching. And they're not starting so healthy. So they don't have Scherzer, Haney anymore. John Gray's on the 60-day IL. And Cody Bradford is starting the year on the injured list too. So they've had to sign Patrick Corbin, who statistically had one of the worst pitching seasons you can imagine last year, coming in from the Nationals. And really, would you say overpaid for him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yes. Hopefully DeGrom, who you hope and pray if you're a Rangers fan, will stay off the IL. And it's just such a shame for DeGrom, really.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when he was with the Mets, like when they were, total losers, he was winning Cy Young awards with like a below 500 record personally as a pitcher.
Yep.
Having no run support. And now that he has a team that has a degree of run support, he can't be healthy.
Nope.
Their bullpen has changed a lot. No Kirby Yates. So we're not 100% sure who will close for the Rangers this year. So because of all the question marks on their pitching staff and their health is pretty suspect, I'm not particularly comfortable with crowning them division champions this year. Though if all the pieces happen to fall into place, they can definitely contend. So that's the Rangers.
Yeah, they got Evaldi and DeGrom at the top of that rotation.
Yes. And lastly, got to go to Seattle, who has had very unfortunate breaks the last couple of years. Missing the playoffs on one game is bad enough. Missing the playoffs on one game 2 years in a row is even worse. Throwing in the blown division lead that we talked about, what was it, like 10 and a half games?
Something like
in
that.
June, and
they
didn't even have the division by the end of the month. And you got to be pulling your hair out if you're a Mariners fan.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think this is the year where they finally get over the hump and get that division crown.
Interesting.
First of all, their starting rotation is back.
Yeah.
Gilbert, Kirby, Miller, Castillo, and Wu. They all give you great seasons last year, and they really kept this team afloat throughout the year.
Yeah.
Even though the offense was really, really bad. And yes, Kirby is hurt, but it's not season-ending stuff. He'll be back. Their lineup is improved from where they were when they collapsed last year anyway. It was still a little too late for Arozarena and Robles to make much of an impact after that. But now they have him for a full year. So now they'll be not having to rely on Julio Rodriguez to do everything in that lineup. They still have Cal Raleigh, and hopefully will be solid behind the plate for a while. The thing for me is that the Mariners just fell apart. And even then, they just missed the playoffs. I don't think that's happening this year. So I think my division winner, the prediction, is the Mariners. That's what I'm going with.
I feel like the Mariners need a bat. I feel like they need another bat.
One more bat.
One more bat. Like they need. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if they went out and get. They should have traded for Kyle Tucker. I guess maybe because they would have been in division with the trade, probably wouldn't have done it. But that Kyle Tucker would have been a big thing for that lineup. Him and Julio right back to back. That would have been good. I think that the loss of Nathaniel Lowe for the Rangers is going to be bigger than they think. Obviously, Jake Berger's filling up that spot. But when I mentioned it in my thing, because he went to the Nationals, and I thought that was a big pickup for the Nationals, I think it's going to be a bigger loss for the Rangers than they think. Mostly because that added some, because they're like a mix of like young and old, but I felt like he was a very a solid piece to that lineup. Not like a great player, but a very good player. I don't have anything against any of your predictions. I could see any one of the top three winning the division, and also them falling off and being
Yeah.
below 500 as well. Just because nothing is as consistent. Like none of the teams are like top contenders.
Yes.
Like they don't see like, oh yeah, they're fighting for the World Series. It's more of they're all like max like 90 win teams. Max.
Yeah, they're the least of the three divisions in the American League.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have anything more else to say to that about that. But all right. Let's go to the NL West. And I apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather. I was sick a little bit last couple of days, and I am just getting back my voice and energy. So if I sound a little bit raspy, a little bit, excuse me, as I cough, forgive me. So I'll start off with the NL West, and I will not spend much time here because this is another poverty franchise with the Colorado Rockies. What is there good to say about the Colorado Rockies?
They have those purple lined rows where the Mile High is.
Yeah. That's pretty much.
That's pretty cool.
Their stadium's pretty much the only good thing that's going for them right now. They really don't have much going on because Chris Bryant's going to end up on the IL at some point. That's going to happen. Ever since they've traded Nolan Arenado and sent money to the Cardinals, this team has been horrific and just a joke of a franchise. They will never get any free agent pitcher to sign with them at all. Their offense has been average at best, playing in a above average hitter's park, the best hitter's park in baseball. You basically have Doyle and Nolan Jones to look forward to, but they're not necessarily cornerstone pieces that are going to be like Nolan Arenado level type player. It bothers me because it's such a beautiful ballpark as I was there, but there's just no good thing that's going to happen to this team this year.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a surprise team. There's nothing about it that can be good for this team.
Well, it's unfortunate that you say that the lineup is average in Colorado because of where they are. And you would think as a hitter, if you really wanted to go to a place where you're going to hit maybe 40, 50 home runs a year, you'd sign with the Rockies because it's like, great, I get this is a way to inflate my numbers and look really good. But there's just no draw to go there.
No, not at all. The pitching staff is absolutely horrible. Marquez is the only one that is actually somewhat decent, but he's coming back from injury. So you have the only thing I can guarantee about this team is that Chris Bryant's going to be on the IL at some point this season. That's the only thing I can guarantee. Everything else is just, and they'll be below 500. Those are two things I can guarantee. So, all right, let's move on. This team, I didn't like a lot of the moves that they made in the offseason. The San Francisco Giants, one thing they did is they hired Buster Posey as, I believe, their president of baseball operations, and kind of like their GM for their team. They fired their former guy, who they believe got from the Dodgers or Tampa Bay, but obviously he wasn't doing it for him. And in the offseason, they traded for Robbie Ray. They signed Verlander, who for some reason is still pitching. The Willie Adames contract that they signed is going to come back to haunt them. And then they lost Blake Snell and Michael Conforto. Again, like I said, I did not like the moves that they made. The Adames contract will definitely come back to haunt them. It was like 6 years, 185 or something like that. Just putrid contract for the player that thrived in Miller Park. I know it's American Family Field, but I'm calling it Miller Park because that's where he played for the Milwaukee Brewers. And he killed there because it's a great hitter's park. I was going to San Francisco, which is a terrible hitter's park. And they're expecting him to probably hit 25 home runs, and he's not going to hit more than 15. They're hoping that Verlander can be the Verlander of old. That's the only one where I feel like there's a possibility of happening, but he's not going to last a full season, I don't think, at 41, 42 years old with that. He's going to be pitching in a pitcher's ballpark, which I think will help. The only one that I did like was the Robbie Ray trade when they did it with Seattle. I like that because he's coming back from injury. He's going to be pitching in a pitcher's ballpark where he hasn't pitched in a pitcher's ballpark really in the last couple of years. Because Seattle sometimes is a hitter's ballpark, sometimes is a pitcher's ballpark. But San Francisco, I think, will really help Robbie Ray. And hoping that he can capture some of the Cy Young magic he had that 1 year with Toronto. their lineup doesn't have really any consistency. Matt Chapman has never been a fantastic, solid piece in the lineup. He's a fantastic fielder, platinum glove, but he's never hit really above 250. You have Adames, who thrived at Miller Park, and then Lamont Wade Jr. really hasn't solidified himself as a star player yet. He's a good player, but that top to bottom doesn't really scare anyone. If they're hoping that their pitching and defense, they're hoping that their pitching and defense gets them into the postseason. They have Logan Webb, Verlander, Jordan Hicks, Robbie Ray. That's a decent rotation if it all pans out. Now, that's if you can keep Verlander healthy and you get, average Verlander. But I think it's going to be really tough for them to make the playoffs if they think that's going to be their kind of way into the postseason within this division, which is a pretty decent division if you count out the Rockies. I see them, if they're around 500, around the deadline, I see them as buyers, but I see them finishing fourth in the division. Moving on to this team that I can never figure out. I really don't know what the heck this team is. And I got the news last night that Yu Darvish is starting on the IL for the Padres because he has elbow inflammation, which is just pretty much the worst news you can experience as a pitcher. San Diego Padres, they added Nick Pivetta, Jason Hayward, and Elias Diaz, who's a catcher, hoping that they can recapture his all-star caliber year with the Colorado Rockies. But they lost Profar, Tanner Scott, and Kim from the infield. And like I said, I can never understand this team. I know they went all in a couple years ago with Soto, and that hit a fan really hard. Obviously, Tatis is their cornerstone for a long time. Machado's locked up for life there. Not prison, but, playing in San Diego, playing for the San Diego Padres might be prison. But they always seem to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door. Dylan Cease, Michael King, and Arise were all talks of trade talks this year in this offseason. I fully expected Cease to be gone, but I don't understand why they're doing that. I know he's going to be a free agent soon, and they're trying to shed payroll, but he's a young pitcher that is really good that you probably could have signed to a better deal than what he would get in free agency for a more team-friendly deal. And also, I don't understand why they would want to trade Arise when they traded to get him. After a year after trading for him, why would you trade him? He's a great hitter, and he's a 3-time batting title now? 3 times? Did he win it last year?
I don't recall.
I can't remember if he won it last year. So they're trying to be competitive, but they're also trying to trade away players. So it's not like a team that's always going to be trying to fight. I don't see them being buyers at the deadline. Mostly because they want to rely on some younger players. Like Jackson Merrill, who was the runner-up to Paul Skeens in the Rookie of the Year. And Jackson Merrill is hoping that he doesn't go into a sophomore slump. But I just don't get it with this team. I don't get it. I just don't get it. If everything works out for them, I could see them being a 90-win team. But I could also see them being a 90-loss team, too. Mostly because they're not, I feel like they don't know what they want. They want to be in, but they're I can't spend that much money because then we're going to be this, and, So, if they're around 500, I could see them trading Cease, which I fully expect. But if they don't, they're going to be that team that probably regrets it because they don't have enough talent to win it all, in my opinion, especially with the pitching in the bullpen moving forward. But yeah, if Tatis, Jackson Merrill, and they hope that Bogarts just comes to anything like he was with the Red Sox, that'd be great. But if someone can give me a clear explanation of what the Padres are doing, please. I don't think even Manny Machado talked about it. He's like, I don't know what we're doing. He talked about that in the offseason. I don't know what we're doing. So that's where I get. I got the Padres finishing third. All right. Team that I don't like anymore. I don't know what it is. Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't like this team. I don't know what it is.
You really don't know why?
A little bit has to do with the Phillies, yeah. But I just think that this team it's kind of annoying. I don't like their manager a little bit. Tavolo. I don't know. Anyway, the big thing that they got, this big piece they got this year was Corbin Burns, who sounded like he was always going to come to this team no matter what deal he was going to get from them. But I think he kind of swayed the Orioles a little bit because this is where he's home. This is where his home is. And he got a lot of money. But in my opinion, I feel like he should have stayed with Baltimore. There's a better shot of, being a better... I think Baltimore has a better team if he's on it than he is on the Diamondbacks, in my opinion. But the Diamondbacks also got Josh Naylor, but they lost Christian Walker and Jock Peterson. I think they got better in terms of overall just because they got Corbin Burns. But I think that lineup will lose a little bit with Christian Walker. I think he was liked in that clubhouse, and they lost a little bit. But they're hoping that they can get back a good bounce back year from Corbin Carroll because he was kind of injured last year, didn't have a lot of good success. But the thing about this lineup is they don't have a ton of pop in the lineup. Christian Walker's gone, so that's a big piece in that. But they have Suarez, who strikes out a lot, and they also have Gurriel and then Josh Naylor as their pop players. But that's not really a threatening lineup in the division that is really power heavy in the lineups with the Padres and the Dodgers. So I think that's going to be the struggle for them is if their lineup is actually good, they could be a really, really good team. Obviously, pitching is their strength with Burns, Gallen, Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez, who I totally forgot about that they signed last year but didn't pitch because he was injured. And then Montgomery, if he's still on the team. But they also have Fat as well. But they've been shopping Montgomery apparently, and because I don't think Montgomery likes the organization, nor does the organization like Montgomery, because Montgomery said some comments, and then the GM said like, "Oh yeah, but I don't really like him anyway," or something like that. Yeah, some weird drama. But I fully expect that team to compete for a wild card team. But Gallen and Burns at the top of that rotation is as good a 1-2 as almost anything in baseball, in my opinion. It's top 5, in my opinion, because I think Corbin Burns is top 5 pitcher just in general. But Zach Gallen, when he's on, he's on. So they're hoping for a bounce back in terms of some players being not injured and their offense being healthy and young and athletic. That's their strength with it. They're young and athletic, and they have good pitching. So hopefully they can stay healthy with that, and I see them finishing second in that division. Yeah. And then last but not least, of course, we have the team that really made the biggest splash and was the talk of the offseason and really the talk of baseball. Excuse me. The talk of baseball the last 4 months. These are the players that they added of note. Blake Snell, Sasaki, Conforto, Tanner Scott, and they re-signed Teoscar Hernandez and Kershaw, and they also got Kirby Yates. Now, I couldn't figure out who they lost because they re-signed Tommy Edman as well, but I don't really think they lost anyone. I couldn't think of it. They almost have too much depth in the pitching. They have Bobby Miller, who is probably a good 3-4 starter on any other team, is in the minor leagues because they have too much pitching. Now, Kershaw's not coming back till I don't know when, but he's going to be in the rotation eventually as a 5th starter just because they need to honor him with it. Now, they did lose Walker Buehler. That was one player that I knew that they lost. But this was when I knew that this was getting a little bit out of hand. And I fully am on board with what the Dodgers are doing. Like, good for them to go get as many players as you want. But when they added Tanner Scott, that was when I was like, all right, this is getting a little out of hand. This is getting a little silly. That bullpen and rotation is ridiculous. They have too much. But it's a good thing for them. It's good to have too much because they have Japan being the minor leagues of the Dodgers pretty much. And I just felt that it was just like, wow, this team is doing everything they can to really step out and win every single year while they have Ohtani. Now, Mookie Betts, it'll be interesting to see if he can get back to what he was because he's down 15 pounds after a sickness he had, and he did not look good. So he's down. Hopefully he can get back to normal. But the Dodgers are easily the best team in baseball, and I don't think it's close in terms of talent. The offense still has all the big names. The only thing that I could see them not winning a division is if they have some really bad injuries and their offense being a little bit older, because Ohtani's 31, 32, Mookie's in his 30s, Freddie Freeman's in his 30s, Max Muncy's in his 30s, Teoscar Hernandez is in his 30s. So you don't have a ton of, young, healthy kids in the lineup. You have a lot of veteran players that could get some soft tissue injuries, but they do have depth to help back it up. They really don't have a weakness. That's the only thing. I was trying to find, their lineup's good. The only thing I have is that they're older. That's the only thing. But that's not really a bad thing. When you're a little bit older, if you have some depth, it's going to be good. So I just... If this team doesn't win division by a large margin, I'd be surprised. I see them winning it by 10, 15 games at least. If they don't win 110 games, I think it's a loss of a season, in my opinion. This team is just too good. I don't know what else to say about it. Everyone knows the people that they signed. Everyone knows the people that, they're the talk of MLB. Anything that's promoted, Ohtani's on there, no matter what. And it's good. Ohtani is the best player in baseball, and I don't think it's close. The dude is ridiculous. But it's good to have a team that is kind of hated a little bit, because you need an evil. You need a villain, and the Dodgers are definitely that villain. Everyone's going to be hoping for the Dodgers' demise, except for the Dodgers fans, and that's good for baseball. But I think this team's going to win it all. I really think so. If they didn't win it all, it's a loss of a season. It'll be a loss of a season for them. So that's who I have. Dodgers win the division.
Well, I don't think you will find one MLB preview or prediction that's not going to pick the Dodgers to win the NL West, honestly.
Yeah.
Or even to win the pennant, for that matter. I can't think of another team in the National League that's on the same level as the Dodgers are. There are teams that can contend with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But in terms of being on the same playing field, I don't think there is.
Yeah.
You mentioned something interesting. I think what impresses me about the Dodgers is how they handle all that too much talent. Because you said before that it's a good thing. It can be a good thing as long as you're able to have all the pieces play out and if there's not huge egos on it.
Yeah.
And we'll get to one of those teams that I'm talking about where that could be a problem in the American League. But the Dodgers are not only have great players, they're managed great.
Yeah.
They're a top-class organization in terms of the way they run things, the way they advertise, the way they put the team together, and just the culture over in LA. It's all good.
Yep. Yeah. It really is kind of admiring to watch with how they're handling it. There's not a ton of even the only thing that really has come up the last couple of years with the Dodgers as a whole. When they got Ohtani, the betting thing came out. But they kind of swept that under the rug. Obviously, it's a little sketchy without everything handled out. But no one really talks about it anymore.
Yeah.
But everything else they've handled with really good class. There's not really any controversy or anything else. They do it really well. And so I admire that. I think other teams just need to step up and actually spend some money.
I agree.
That's just what they need to do.
Well, it's kind of like the equivalent of, tanking in the NBA or the NFL because they know they're going to get the revenue sharing at the end of the year. As long as they lose enough, hey, we're going to take some money from the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Phillies.
Yep.
The teams are actually trying to compete.
Yep.
And that's incentivizing mediocrity.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, we got the West out of the way.
Yep.
Let's go to what I think is probably the most interesting division for me to look at in the American League, and that's the Central. There's 4 interesting teams, and then there's one not-so-interesting team. And I'll talk about the not-so-interesting team first, and I think you all know where we're going with this, or where I'm going with this. No way to start than starting from the bottom. They were, after all, the worst team in baseball history by total losses in 2024, the butt of all jokes on this podcast. And frankly, they probably won't be too much better this year than they were last year. I guess you can't get worse than 121 losses, right? I mean, look at the roster of the Chicago White Sox. And other than Benintendi and Luis Robert, I don't know anyone.
No.
I look at that. Like, do you know anyone else other than those two?
No.
That off the top of your head?
I don't know any pitchers on that team.
Yeah, and the one good pitcher they have is not there anymore.
Yeah, Crochet.
Yeah, he got saged by another Sox team. And definitely not anyone I would be afraid to face.
No.
There's no one that's just like, oh my gosh, like I really got to organize my rotation to make sure that they could face these guys okay. I think they'll be a 100-loss team again this year. They have nothing. And other than that, I got nothing to say about them. So let's just move on. Unless you want to say more.
Before you move on, I think at the end of the podcast, I want to talk about how many teams we think are actually going to finish with 100 losses. Because I think there's more than one, for sure.
I'm not saying that they're the only one, but I think out of all the teams we're going to talk about, this is the one.
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
Without question, I think is going to lose 100 losses. If I were a betting man, I probably would say that.
Yeah.
I don't bet.
I have some comments, but yes, let's move on.
Now that I got the White Sox out of the way, I could talk about the good teams in the division. Because this division is otherwise pretty good.
It is pretty good.
Could their wins be inflated because they have the White Sox? Probably. But 3 playoff teams came out of the Central last year, so that has to count for something. Firstly, the Twins. Whoops.
No, not the Twins? Whoops.
Yeah.
Technology problems.
Yes. I was trying to scroll down, and it just skipped to the next page.
Skip to the end.
Yes. First-class podcasting here.
Yes.
Firstly, the Twins. I believe this team was my pick to win the division last year. I'm sorry, guys. I was too lazy to check. I didn't want to go back to the podcast and try and listen through.
We don't keep notes.
Yeah. Maybe we should. Just so, like, when we talk about things, we're not like, oh, do you remember what we said this time?
Yeah.
I think they were. They were the other AL Central team that ended up not making it, finishing only a few games above 500. They collapsed at the end of the year. They finished like 12-27. So they ended brutally. And it's showing how much this offense relies on Correa and Buxton, who got the injury bug late last year, and it really showed.
Wait, they got the injury bug? No way.
Yes. For those of you who are not too knowledgeable about those two, they get hurt a lot.
Yes.
Royce Lewis is also hurt.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
He's so much fun.
He is. And the Twins did not really do anything in the offseason unless you count Harrison Bader as a big splash.
No.
Their pitching staff is fine, albeit it's top-heavy, with Pablo Lopez and Duran leading the way. But to me, the fate of the Twins this year will hang on their 3 injury-prone stars on the offense. That's what's going to come down to. If they can manage to play through this year together, and if Willie Castro can build on his all-star year last year, they could be a tough beat. But when compared to the other 3 teams that I'm going to talk about in this division, they have the least amount of potential and upswing.
Yep.
So that's why I think they're going to finish above the White Sox in 4th. Which isn't saying a lot, I know.
What's your goal this year? To finish above the White Sox. All right. That's a goal.
Now, this is the most difficult choice between division contenders that I've had so far. Because these are all teams with a ton of potential. You had the Guardians making the ALCS. You had the Tigers and the Royals surprising us not only not making the playoffs, but having a Cy Young winner and a pitching Triple Crown winner in Detroit.
Yep.
And a runner-up for the MVP in Kansas City. So I kind of had to think this thing through. But I think 3rd is going to go to Detroit this year. Let's start with them. They had not made the playoffs since 2014. And in August, they had small, minuscule odds to even make a shot at making a run. But this is baseball, and anything can happen. And they ended up finishing the year 31-13, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That is a crazy hot run. And it continued into the playoffs. They made the playoffs. They knocked out Houston, which was a great sight to see.
It was great.
It was great to see because Houston made, 7 straight ALCSs?
Yeah.
We didn't need to see anymore.
Nope.
Heck, they took the Guardians to 5 games, before they finally petered out. So it was an impressive run. You got to give Detroit a lot of credit for that. They were the perfect case of a team that got hot at just the right time. And a lot of that has to do with Tarek Skubal, who was a stud last year. Pitching Triple Crown winner, Cy Young winner. Took the MLB by storm with the season that he had. You had Riley Green carry them a bit with his All-Star season. Jack Flaherty pitched well before his Dodgers trip, and he's back to compliment him.
Yeah.
So he was one of those few guys. Yankee legend Gleyber Torres is there now.
And a beard.
Yeah, and a beard right after he leaves, and the Yankees reinstate, or take away the beard policy. And Kerry Carpenter will work on the vast difference in average between his right-handed and left-handed pitching. I don't know if you saw the stats for him.
I did not.
With his average, I think against righties he hits 300, but against lefties he's like 150.
Wow.
It's absurd. So hopefully he can kind of balance it out. And who knows, Torkelson can have a bounce-back year. He did good in 2023, struggled in 2024. It happens. But I can't shake the feeling that this is more of a team that just happened to get hot at the right time, as opposed to being a team that's actually great. Outside the names I've mentioned, the rest of the gang are kind of just okay, or a bit underwhelming. Even with your beloved Phillies legend, Matt Vierling.
I love Matt.
We have to see how the youth in the outfield will pan out. And they'll get opportunities to play with the few injuries they have. They have potential for sure, but I think the other two teams are better or have more potential. And I don't think they are a complete enough team yet to really make the big push toward a championship. I think everything has to go their way for that to happen like it did late last year. If they get hot like they did last year, yeah, they can make a run. But as a team by itself, I don't think they have that talent yet. So
you're saying that Javi Baez isn't going to be a major part of that team?
Well, he's major in the memes that he's created.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Like there's like a strikeout compilations that you see on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
It's how I look when I play the show sometimes. Just swinging at pitches.
It's
way
true.
Out of the zone.
It's true.
Now is to move on to the other two teams. Now, going to the team who I thought would be the runner-up in the division last year, I think. Again, I don't remember. I'm sorry. But anyway, the Guardians. Vogt made quite the managerial debut, taking the team to the ALCS, especially given that their rotation was, largely bad. They were bad. They had no Shane Bieber, so they were largely bad. What carried them was their bullpen. Clase, could have
won the Cy Young.
He could have won the Cy Young probably if not for Skubal. And a solid lineup. You would think that they would make moves to build upon that momentum. And they did make moves, albeit to me sort of like Padre-esque puzzling ones. Like I'm not exactly sure 100% what they were doing all the time. No more Josh Naylor. He's in Arizona. And no more Jimenez, who's a Gold Glover. They did get Carlos Santana back, even though he's ancient now.
Yep.
He's 39 years old.
Whew.
And this is his third trip back to Cleveland, I think, right?
Can't get rid of him.
Yeah. He still won the Gold Glove in 2024 as an ancient guy. So
was he with the Pittsburgh? He was Pittsburgh?
I think so.
Carlos.
I can't remember. Oh no, I think I'm thinking of someone else. You're thinking of Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was in Pittsburgh.
Maybe.
They did make a ton of moves for their rotation, which
Carlos Santana. Oh, he's with Minnesota. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
They did make moves for a rotation, which I thought was a tad, or they didn't. I don't know how I read this. Well, anyway, they got Luis Ortiz in the Jimenez trade because the Pirates trade anyone remotely with promise.
That's true.
So we have to wait and see on him. Granted, they are getting Bieber back after the All-Star break, so they won't be without him again the entire year this year. And Tanner Beebe and Ben Lively did a fine job, but the bottom of the rotation is full of young guys with a lot of question marks.
Mm-hmm.
And the bullpen can't be strained again like they were last year, even with the legendary Paul Sewald now there. The lineup, I think, can hold its own. You got Jose Ramirez, almost 40-40, or did he make 40-40 last year?
I think he was close.
He was close, I know that.
Yeah.
Steven Kwan, Santana's back, and the rest. But it could potentially be a very trying first half until Bieber comes back, or if they make another move in between. Who knows? They'll surprise us. I think if they could stay at 500 or better by July when Bieber comes back, they'll be in pretty good shape. But that's not a sure thing, so we'll have to see.
Yep.
And now to move on to the team that I am interested in seeing the most this year, of all the teams I've been catching up on. Because only 2 years ago, the Kansas City Royals lost 106 games. Brutally bad. They improved by 30 games last year, made the playoffs, and shut down my AL Pennant pick last year, which I did remember, which was the Orioles, in 2 games. Not a high-scoring series. I think Kansas City scored like only 3 runs in both games. That was enough because Baltimore couldn't do much of anything. They are a team with both veteran presence and promising young players. Ageless wonder Salvador Perez is coming back, man.
Baby.
Vinny Pasquantino's coming off an almost 100 RBI season. They brought in Jonathan India to complement Michael Massey. And how can we go through an MLB preview without the star in the making, Bobby Witt Jr.?
He's already a star.
Yeah. And he pretty much is.
Yeah.
AL MVP runner-up last year. And in the rotation, they've kept the core while also signing Michael Lorenzen. What could potentially hold them back this year, however, is twofold. First, the infield, pretty good. The outfield, not as impressive. Their bullpen last year was also terrible. But they also did get Carlos Estevez, Phillies legend.
Yep.
Even though he is an improvement over what they had, even though Philly fans would like to forget him for the postseason, but I won't go into that. All of that is to say this. I think they have the most upside of any team in this division. They have a talented top of the lineup and a great rotation. If the bottom half can produce and the bullpen can step up, I think they'll be golden. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I was tempted to choose the Guardians because they did make the ALCS, and they have that star power in their lineup too. But I'm going to choose the Royals as my AL Central winners this year, baby, for those reasons.
I like
Crown them.
Crown them. Whoa, crown the Royals. Get it. Get it. I kind of agree with you. I didn't like what the Guardians did, like getting rid of Naylor and Jimenez, not really adding any big pieces other than Carlos Santana. But I don't know. It seems like the Guardians are like the Rays a couple years ago. They just find a way to win, and they're kind of like that scrappy team. Like they'll have a pitcher that'll probably have a sub-3 ERA that we didn't even know about. I could see either 3 of those teams winning the division. Mm-hmm. I don't see the Twins winning it. I think the Twins are a wild card team, so I agree with you on the structure of that. But if the Tigers get hot again and like all their prospects work out, I could see the Tigers doing it. But I think the Royals are in terms of talent, probably have the best team out of the 3. So yeah, I agree with you. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not a fun podcast.
No, it's not. What am I supposed?
No, I know.
You want me to find something to disagree with you about?
No.
I could probably find something.
Whatever. Just move on to NL Central. NL Central, guys.
All right. Here we go. This really weird. I talked with you about this the other day. The St. Louis Cardinals are just right now struggling hard. I think I asked you the question. Has there ever been a time in your life where the Cardinals weren't competing for the playoffs?
Not in my lifetime.
Not in your lifetime. How old are you?
32.
32. I can't think of the time either where the Cardinals were necessarily not even in contention for a potential wild card or playoff spot. But this year, they are. I know last year or the year before, I picked them to be like the surprise team. They're going to win it and they win the division. No, Cardinals, they absolutely are horrible. Nolan Arenado and Sonny Gray should not be on this team right now, nor will they be at the trade deadline. And if they are, the Cardinals are doing a huge disservice to their fans. Excuse me. Ryan Helsley also shouldn't be on this team. He should be somewhere else. He's probably one of the best closers in the game. And he's probably not going to have more than 20 saves because the team is not going to win more than 60 games, probably. They obviously have Wilson Contreras as they're moving him to first base, but Wilson Contreras is not the best player. He's not the best player on the team, nor is he the best player he's not even a top 100 player anymore. Now they have Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker that they're hoping to have better years than they did last year and improve on that. But that's not necessarily something that you really want to hope for as like if you need this to happen for them to be good. I'm thinking that Nolan Arenado will probably be traded probably within the first 2 months as long as he's doing well, and as well as Helsley and Sonny Gray. I don't really have much else to say about the team. Like they're pretty bad. They obviously lost Goldie, and they're moving Contreras to first base, but there's nothing about this team that is really exciting. Like like Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker, like they were fun prospects to talk about, but what they've shown hasn't really been like, wow, I can't wait to go watch them play. That's not. So I kind of feel bad for St. Louis, who is a baseball city. Like that, they have baseball, and that's it. Like I fully expect that stadium to not be full the entire year until they make some big transition moves. Like they need to do some big stuff.
How dare you dismiss the legendary St. Louis Blues?
Yeah, the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, the Blues.
The hockey team.
Yeah, they won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago.
Were they from the Lou?
Probably.
Yeah, but it's still a baseball town.
Yes,
that St. Louis is a baseball town.
Yes.
So Cardinals finishing last. I don't have much else to say about that team. It's a shame because I've always kind of been a soft spot for the Cardinals. I don't know why. And the Cardinals are fun when they're good, in my opinion. But they're not good right now. And it might be a little bit before they're good. It doesn't look good for them for a while. All right, moving on. Now this team, in my opinion, other than the Juan Soto deal and probably Sasaki for the Dodgers, this was probably the biggest move, in my opinion, that a team made. And that was the Reds signing Terry Francona to be their manager. Terry Francona is a future Hall of Famer. There's nothing else that needs to be said about that. He's a future Hall of Fame manager. Ever since he left the Phillies, he led the Red Sox to 2 World Series, and he led the Indians and Guardians to back-to-back winning seasons. A team that literally has 0 star power other than Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez, but a lot of random players just working out for him. And that's kind of what the Reds are. They have a couple star players, but then they have a lot of players that just have some talent that he can probably mix and match. And he's good at what he does. They got Gavin Lux, Jose Trevino, I think Taylor Rogers and Brady Singer, but they lost Jonathan India. But like I said, their biggest add was adding Terry Francona to their managerial staff. De La Cruz obviously is one of the most exciting players that you're going to watch. Dude can be 50-50 if he probably wanted to be. It could maybe 40-40. I don't know about 50 home runs, but 40-40. But other than that, they have a lot of players like Encarnacio Strand, Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer, and Cal Stevenson who have a lot of potential, but they also have a lot to prove. This is kind of the year where I see them taking a step forward and showing some potential, but they're not going to really have it all put together just because it's kind of a year too early for them. They're just a little bit too young still. I think this is a kind of a foundation year where Francona gets his foot in the door, he lays the groundwork, and it gets the players to believe in something where they build on it. And then, maybe they can play spoiler at the end of the year, but I don't see them being like that. Wow. They could win. I don't see them winning division at all. Hunter Green is a Cy Young candidate. He's very, very good. But other than that, they really don't have a couple pitchers that are necessarily star players. They obviously added Brady Singer from the trade with the Royals, but they're hoping that a couple pitchers can stay healthy with Abbott and, I forgot to write the note, but their lefty pitcher that they're hoping to stay healthy. They had some good potential, but hopefully they can put together enough innings with their pitching staff that they can compete. But their biggest move, obviously, was Terry Francona. And I don't know how anyone can argue that. I think that was one of the biggest moves that any team could made in the offseason, other than Juan Soto and Sasaki, the signing. Other than that, I think Francona's going to make a huge impact for that team. But they're still going to finish. I could see them probably. I think the ceiling for them is 500 this year. But they're probably going to finish below 500. Encarnacio Strand, Gavin Lux, all those guys, they could be good. They could be a good team, but they have to get a couple pieces together before they can move forward. Now the next team, finishing third. This team, they made a couple big moves, but for some reason, I can't get behind them. I don't know what it is. Chicago Cubs. I don't see them finishing first. I don't know what it is. They just seem like a team that they've fallen the last couple of years. They've started off kind of average, or they've kind of gotten on some streaks, and they've been so close, but haven't made it yet. And they obviously went out and got Kyle Tucker. They got Presley. They added Justin Turner, but they lost Cody Bellinger. Obviously, adding Kyle Tucker was a huge move that adds their lineup, but he's only there for 1 year. He's only there for 1 year. They're hoping that Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, Suzuki, Nico Horner, and Kyle Tucker, and the rest of the guys like Pete Crow Armstrong and Shaw, who's their up-and-coming third baseman, they're hoping that lineup can be as deadly as other lineups, but I don't really see them as a scary lineup. Other than Kyle Tucker, I really don't. I'm not scared when Dansby Swanson steps up to the plate, or Nico Horner, or Ian Happ, or Suzuki. Like, I'm not scared when that team like shows up. Like when the Chicago Cubs are visiting, like I don't get scared to visit them. I don't know. It doesn't strike a lot of fear into me. They have Imanaga and Steele that they're hoping to set up the 1-2 of the rotation, but that just doesn't scare me. Like that team doesn't necessarily strike fear into me when you're facing them. Like when the Dodgers went to go face them over in Japan, I was like, this team doesn't look like the Cubs don't look like they're really there. I don't know. Just doesn't seem like a team that is really. They probably have high expectations. They're aiming to win the division, but there's just something about this team that just doesn't really seem to be there. I don't know. Like they added Kyle Tucker, but there's just I don't know. I only had a couple notes because there's not much to this team other than them adding Kyle Tucker and Presley. Like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they're a good team. What do you think? You're kind of puzzled with it.
Keep going.
All right. But I could see them. I see them being sellers at the deadline, in my opinion. That's my honest opinion. Just because I think the NL is pretty loaded with talent in each division, that I could see them being sellers. I think their ceiling for them is maybe 85, 86 wins, but their floor is high, in my opinion, or low, whatever exactly how to say that. Now we go to the team that probably people are going to question why I have them here, and that's the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is the year that I think the Pirates really step up to the plate. Reason why is because
I see what you did.
Hey-o! A lot of eyes are on them, mostly because of Paul Skeens. I mean, how can you not be excited about the guy? The dude is flat out ridiculous with his stuff. Dude's 21, 22 years old, not even like that age, and he was Rookie of the Year deservingly, and also started the All-Star game last year and was pretty much deserving of that too. He's pretty much come up here and done exactly what everyone expected him to do. Now, they didn't really add a ton of players, and we've made fun of the Pirates being a poverty franchise because they don't really go out and spend a ton of money. They added Andrew Heaney and Tommy Pham. That doesn't really strike fear in anyone's eyes. But they have a lot of young prospects that are hoping that they can deliver. And O'Neal Cruz is healthy, and they moved him to the outfield. They're not starting with shortstop anymore. They moved him to the outfield, which I think will help. They're also hoping that young prospect, number 4 overall pick, Henry Davis, comes into the guy that they expect to be as their catcher. Now they have Ke'Bryan Hayes, Reynolds. They have McCutchen coming back, who's obviously a stud and just going to be a role player in what he does. But that rotation is where it's going to happen. They have Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, who I think is starting on the IL, but should be back, and Mitch Keller. And they have some prospects on the way with Booger McFarland. He's one of the prospects coming up that rivals. He has said that he's going to be this opening day starter next year instead of Skeens. So obviously it's healthy competition for that team, and they obviously think that they have some talent with it, and that's what strikes me as a team that probably will do better than they expect to. Is when they have that confidence level with it, it carries through the entire organization. Now, because there are a lot more eyes on Skeens, hopefully they can pull it through and make a wild card this year. And that's what I expect them to do. I shouldn't say. I don't expect them to make the wild card, but I expect them to be the second best team in that division. I haven't gone through my wild card. We'll get to the wild card teams at the end. Okay. Last team who won the division last year, who I expected... Last year I picked them to finish last in the division. I don't know why I did that, because I don't know. This just was a bad decision. Now, they did lose Adames and Devin Williams, but the Braves added Nestor Cortez as well. They're also getting Brandon Woodruff back, which is a huge, huge plus. Now, I don't know if they're any better than they were last year in terms of depth, but they still have pieces to be a great team, and they still won the division last year. They're hopefully getting a fully healthy Yelich back, which would be great because great for baseball. You know, he had a good year last year where he was putting together some decent WAR. Now, I think losing Adames, with Adames going to the Giants hurt him more. Like, I think it's him leaving Milwaukee will hurt Milwaukee more than it'll help the Giants. Mostly because he fit so well in that ballpark, and he was also a pretty good defensive shortstop. Not great, but good. This is where I think the reason why the team will finish first. I think William Contreras is an MVP candidate behind the plate for the Brewers. The dude just has been getting better every year that he's played in the major leagues. And he's also probably would be an MVP if he played the Phillies 162. The dude just kills the Phillies. Every time I've seen him come up to the plate, I think he's had a double and home run. It's ridiculous. But I think William Contreras is going to be an MVP candidate behind the plate, and he's going to lead that team to the division crown. I could see them winning the division, but I could also see them finishing third just because there's a lot of ups and downs. That bullpen losing Devin Williams. They have some hard-throwing guys in there, but there's nothing to that foundation piece of Devin Williams obviously is a big loss. So there's going to be some growing pains there. They still have Rhys Hoskins. They still have some younger guys that they're hoping to pan out, and Jackson Churio, who had a pretty good rookie season. Hopefully he doesn't have a sophomore slump, but I could see them finishing third, but I also think they're still the favorites to win that division. Like, that division 1 through 4 with Brewers, Pirates, Cubs, Reds, all 4 of them, I could see talent-wise there's not much disparity between them. There's a little bit. Like, the Cubs probably have more star power names, but in terms of overall talent, I could see any Cubs, Pirates, Brewers, I could see any one of them winning the division. But if I'm going to pick one, I'm probably going to pick the Brewers. Yeah.
Well, I guess first, just by principle, I can't choose the Brewers to win the division because my hot take the last podcast was that the Reds were going to win the division.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was my hot take. So that by principle, I can't choose that, though I could definitely. That's why it's a hot take. So I definitely can see Milwaukee doing that. The curious part about me is how the Pirates and the Cubs thing is going to work itself out. I don't know if I put Pirates at 2. I don't know. I mean, they have potential, sure, but I can't help but look at the Cubs and who they got. I think they're a better lineup than they were last year, even by losing Bellinger.
Yeah, I think they're a better lineup.
And
but
they have an overall better rotation.
Who did they add?
What?
Who did they add?
What, in the rotation?
Yeah.
They didn't really add much of anyone. But I still think it's better.
Than the Pirates?
Yeah.
So I think that the talent is there, like more solidified talent, the Cubs are, but I just think the Pirates are going to take that step forward with it. Yeah. Like, I don't think the Cubs are kind of, they've spent some money, but they didn't go completely all. They obviously got Justin Tucker, Kyle Tucker, not Justin. They only got Justin Turner. Yeah. That's what I was saying, Justin Tucker, and Kyle Turner. But there's something about the team the last couple of years and just not making it that I feel like it's kind of solidified them as kind of like, I don't know, is this going to be the same thing over and over again? I feel like they have to get over that hump, and I don't see them getting over that hump with it. Maybe Kyle Tucker doesn't have as good a year as he did because he was kind of helped with the Houston Astros lineup, because he's in the Cubs lineup, which is not as good as what that Houston Astros lineup was. So I just see the Cubs being like, I don't see the Pirates Cubs. I don't see them being like 50 games above 500 or something like that. I see them being like 85 win teams, maybe 80 win teams within that range. But there's just something about the Cubs I just don't feel this year. I don't know what it is. There's just something about it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the probably the more interesting divisions in our opinion.
Yes.
The AL East.
And have I told you how much I hate playing in the Eastern Division? Even when the Yankees were hated for being champions a lot and not laughed at for dropping pop flies and not covering first base, teams like the basement-dwelling Rays would always find a way to win, like in the early 2000s. Like, I hated playing the Rays more than anybody because they turned it on when they play a division rival, especially the Yankees.
Yeah.
You can never expect an easy time in such a division. And last year it played out like this. Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, Rays, and Blue Jays. I think this will largely remain unchanged, but with one exception, and I'll explain. Let's kick it off. So, it wasn't too long ago when it seemed like the Blue Jays were seen as a team on the up and up. And looking on paper at their lineup. Remember 2023?
Yeah.
They have Vlad, they have Merrifield, they have Bichette as their 2 through 4. And they had a couple of Cy Young contenders in their rotation, winning, and they won 89 games.
Yep.
And it was in the AL East, which is a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
How did they follow that up? By doing absolutely nothing.
Yep.
They did nothing. Well, maybe not absolutely nothing. They got worse.
Yeah.
Because the Blue Jays just seem to have this ability to underwhelm after showing promise. It happened in 2015 and 2016. It's happening now. It's like the circle of life. They became sellers at the deadline last year, and Vlad may not be long for this team. That's the rumors flying around right now.
So many.
They're looking for places to send him. He's not anywhere yet, but they're anticipating that that's probably going to happen. And it's not like they were trying to be aggressive. It's not like they weren't trying to be aggressive. Remember the whole Shohei fiasco? And this offseason, how they were trying to go in on anyone and got almost no one. They weren't getting any breaks until they finally landed Santander.
Yeah.
A much-needed boost to their lineup. George Springer isn't who he was. And the rotation, while good, it's showing its age. And even more so now that they have Scherzer. So it's adding even more age to their aging rotation.
You're old.
You're old. Suffice to say, they need to turn things around this year, or I think the Blue Jays will be in full-on rebuild mode. In some ways, they may already be there. And mindset-wise, it's just, I don't know, it's just a lot of wasted potential, in my opinion, in Toronto. Yeah. I think it was wasted.
Yeah, with that team finishing... Like, their thing is, like, that division, like, they be competing in the NL Central.
Yeah, I agree.
And the NL West. But because it's in the AL East, yeah. Yep.
And now moving on to the poor Rays. The team, of course, not their... I feel bad for the team, of course, not their almost non-existent fan base. They don't exist. We've established that in the podcast. There's no fans in Florida. You have to deal with the Wander Franco stuff. They had a losing season, and they'll be playing in the Yankees spring training home this year because a hurricane blew the roof off of their stadium. And we got the news recently, I think in between podcasts, that they're not going to be building a new stadium after all.
Yeah.
So that's scrapped. The saving grace of this team coming into this year, if you have any hope at all as a Rays fan, is the pitching. Although I believe all of them were hurt at some point last year. They're also a beat up rotation, but it really is the hope of this team. Say what you want about the Kevin Cash system, which I'm not a fan of. I don't think you're a fan of either.
Nope. But
it can't be denied that this has been their major strength. Like, platooning all these pitchers in and out. Shane McClanahan is coming back.
Thank God.
Drew Rasmussen is bouncing back from injury. And I assume Cash will play with the bullpen game system throughout to complement them. There is a major, major problem with the offense. It was awful. It was like White Sox almost awful. I think they were like second to last in almost every offensive category except for the White Sox last year. And it was exacerbated by trading away Rosarena and Paredes. They did get Haesung Kim, who can provide a bit of a boost, I guess. Mm-hmm. But other than that, the only guy that I would worry about in the lineup is Brandon Lowe. Interestingly enough, though, I think one of the wild cards for the Rays this year is playing outside because they're going to be playing in Steinbrenner Field with Yankee Stadium dimensions. So I'm curious to see if that could be a factor in the success of the offense, how maybe playing outside, playing with a shorter infield could help them.
Hey, we're watching it right now.
Yeah, we're watching the Phillies and the Yankees playing at Steinbrenner Field, which is going to be the Rays' home in a week. Maybe it'll just be enough to keep them out of the basement. I think it will, but again, they're not a good team either, really. Moving on.
Yeah.
And this is the one where I've had a lot of difficulty choosing between the second and third place teams. But this is another one where I'm going out on a limb, I think. I picked this team to go to the World Series last year. I was hyping them up on the Baltimore Orioles, and for good reason. They had what I've been hearing others aptly call an enviable collection of young talent, which they still have.
Yep.
Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, Jackson Holliday, Colton Cowser, all of whom were under 30. They brought in Corbin Burns. Grayson Rodriguez had a great year. And they brought in Craig Kimbrell filling for Felix Bautista. And yet, they only scored 1 run in 2 games against Kansas City in the wild card round. They didn't even make it to the divisional round. It's not what we were expecting things to play out. And you can argue that Baltimore didn't get better this year.
They didn't.
They did not.
They did not.
The anchor of their rotation is gone. No more Corbin Burns. Santander is gone. He's not there anymore. And they did sign Tyler O'Neill to fill in for Santander. He hasn't played a ton the last few years. I think he played like 111 games last year.
He's been a little injury prone.
And then like 90 the year before and 70 the year before that. I'm stumped as to why they did not try and make a move for starting pitching. Because they really need it. It's a weak spot. Charlie Morton is not exactly youthful, okay? I think he was contemplating retirement. Was he just pretty much done, and then the Orioles gave him a call because they needed him?
Probably.
Pretty much. And Grayson Arrea has injury problems this year.
Yep.
So that stinks for them. I guess Philly legend Zach Eflin will carry them to victory.
Yeah. They let go of John Means. They let go of him.
Yeah.
And I think they just signed Kyle Gibson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one, but Kyle Gibson isn't this. It's just an innings eater.
Yeah.
He's 4 or 5 starter with it. So I don't know. It's really a shame that they couldn't re-sign Corbin Burns.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They are getting Bautista back.
Yeah.
That gives you even more hope as an Orioles fan. And they still have that core, which has a ton of potential.
Yeah.
But they need to get a boost from the rotation. And if they don't, they won't be going far in October if they get there at all.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
Now to move on to what I think will be a reignition of the best rivalry in baseball, I think. This has been a team of ups and downs over the last 7 years. They won the World Series in 2018, then proceeded to make one of the most lopsided trades in baseball history.
Yeah,
by
ever.
trading away Mookie Betts. Then made the ALCS in 2020 run, and then just been largely mediocre ever since. But yet, the Boston Red Sox are looking to change that this year, and boy, have they made changes. First of all, they saved Garrett Crochet from baseball purgatory, a.k.a. the White Sox. They also got Alex Bregman, who, if you knew this, has a 1.24 OPS at Fenway.
Oof.
So, yeah, a big signing in that regard. They even managed to poach Walker Buehler from L.A.
Yep.
Who, although struggled in the regular season, did perform in the postseason in ways that I'd prefer not to talk about. Anyway, and they signed Yankees legend Aroldis Chapman.
Yep.
Oh. So, yeah, they've made moves to complement talent like Jared Duran and Willer Abreu with a stellar farm team to back them up. I think they might have the #1 farm system in baseball. Who's that guy?
Roman Anthony.
Roman Anthony. There's a lot of hype about him.
Yep.
I mentioned before about the Dodgers' plethora of talent and how if you can manage it well, you're golden with as long as you manage the egos. What's going to make and break them for me is how Alex Cora is going to put these pieces together, particularly how he's going to work out a lineup with 2 third basemen in it, Rafael Devers and now Bregman. Devers appears to be going into the DH spot right now, even though he's adamant that he is a third baseman. He doesn't want to play anywhere else. So trade rumors are abounding at this point. That's not something the Red Sox need right now. In a sea of optimism, this is really weighing the team down, I think. And I think there is a way to make him work, but you hope that Cora can, put the pieces together that they need. This may be a case where having too much talent somewhere is not a good thing. But if Cora can somehow manage his way out of this, Boston will be a force to reckon with.
I agree.
But even if they are a force on paper, I still believe in one other team to take the AL East this year. My beloved but incredibly frustrating Yankees. If if it were a month or so ago, I would be saying that the Yankees were not only clear division winners, but really the one team in my mind that would be going back to the World Series representing the American League. Look at the people they got. They got Max Fried, Goldschmidt, Cody Bellinger, Devin Williams, all signings that they needed to fill the holes that were hampering them last year, arguably. Yes, losing Soto to the Mets is almost as bad as it gets. Don't get me wrong. But even without him, the Yankees were a more complete team on paper coming into the start of spring training. I hold to that. And then the injuries started pouring in.
Mm-hmm.
Stanton with the elbows, DJ LeMahieu with the calf injury, Luis Heel with the lat strain, and the ultimate punch to the gut, losing our ace Garrett Cole for the year as he gets Tommy John surgery. These injuries, especially Cole, make the road to the World Series a lot more difficult for them. Stan may be older and not healthy, but he still has power. Look what he did in the postseason last year.
Postseason hero.
I don't think the Yankees would have had as much success last year in the postseason if they didn't have his bat. He was on fire. And even with his injuries, I can't complain about Stan anymore. If you win in the postseason, if you perform, they'll love you forever in the city.
Yep.
And I think Stan has earned that respect. You have Heel. He was last year's Rookie of the Year. He was fantastic.
Yes, he was.
Fortunately, they're not losing him for the year, but it's still a big loss to lose him in that rotation for the first few months. Even now, I saw the news coming in that Clark Schmidt's going to be starting the year.
And Ian Hamilton.
Yep, and Ian Hamilton, both guys that they really need in the pitching staff. And now you have to wonder about the potential health of the other players, like an aging Goldschmidt. Will he get hurt too? He was pulled from the game recently. He's back in the lineup today.
Yep.
But you got to think about him. What about Judge? He has a history too. It's just when you get all these injuries, you start to become a bit paranoid. It's like, oh man, that he didn't run the first base at 100%. Does that mean he pulled something? Sort of thing.
You paranoid? No way.
They must stay healthy. I can't emphasize that enough because when they are with the new free agents, Volpe at short, Chisholm at second, you'll have the Cabreras kind of like interchanging at third base, Austin Wells catching, and you hope that Dominguez is not dropping a bunch of pop flies in left field this year. If you have all that, I think you can get through this rough stretch until the other guys return. As long as it's kind of like who I was talking about with the I forgot who I was even talking about. There was another team I was talking about. Is as long as you stay the Guardians. Yeah. If you stay above water until the All-Star break, I think they'll be fine. And the rotation, if they live up, with Fried and Rodon and now Stroman, boy, I didn't think I'd be saying that because there was rumors until recently with all the injuries that he would be gone. Mm-hmm. But now they need him desperately. And now Carlos Carrasco is going to be filling in that rotation too.
Cookie.
If they can really hold it together and really grit their way through it, the Yankees could very well be AL champions again. But right now, it's a huge, huge if. And I'll leave it at that.
I think Dominguez is your X factor. If he has, 25 home run season and is just serviceable out in left field, I think you guys probably win that division easily because of him. Yeah. Like if he just is somewhat close to what he's supposed to be, I think you guys are going to win that division. Yeah. It really sucks when Garrett Cole got hurt. I was like, oh, come on. It's just really frustrating because he's one of the best pitchers in the game, and then you just lose him for the year for a team that you expect to be good, but it does add a lot more drama to that and kind of left it a little bit more wide open as soon as those injuries started happening because everyone expected the Yankees to be the favorite. Yeah, and then the injuries started piling. Like, all right, everything started getting closer to each other. I could see any of the 5 teams win a division. If the Blue Jays, I could probably see as the lowest. Yes. But if things work out for them and Bo Bichette has a bounce back year, Guerrero has a great year, pitching staff's great, I could see them winning 90 games. I could also see them losing 90 games. I could see like the parity in the AL East is so ridiculous. I could see the Yankees being below 500 too because of the injuries. Mm-hmm. But they just have too much talent. Like the ceiling is higher for them. But yeah, that division is the most interesting to watch in my opinion. That's just it really is a shame. I think Stanton was the biggest loss other than Cole.
Yeah,
like
he was.
it just adds a lot of more fear into that lineup. I know Stanton is really inconsistent sometimes and gets really streaky, but he just having him behind Judge and just that another player, like, holy crap, he can hit a 500-foot home run. It just adds a lot more power to your lineup.
Yeah, the downgrade down to Ben Rice is big.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Stanton, honestly.
I mean, there's still rumors about Arenado.
Yeah.
They just make the Cardinals from last year. Yeah.
Just get Matt Carpenter again.
Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah.
Gosh. All right. Moving on to our last division, the NL East. And I'm not going to spend much time on the worst team in this division because they are literally one of the worst teams in baseball. The Miami Marlins. I'm just going to read the statement that I have here, and I'll just end it with that. The only good thing about this team is that Sandy Alcantara is coming back to pitch for them. Yuri Perez should be back by midseason, so their 1-2 at the end of the year could play spoiler in the rotation. The lineup, however, could be the weakest in the entire MLB. Xavier Edwards and Jesus Sanchez are the two names that have any presence. Any presence. Who are they? Who are they? They suck. This team could be 110 losses if their pitching is anything less than average. Absolutely horrible team. Not only did they not spend really any money in the offseason, but there's apparently something in the collective bargaining agreement that they have to spend a certain amount of money, otherwise they get penalized. So they have to take on contracts later. I think they have to add like $30 million in payroll, otherwise they get penalized or something like that. So they're going to have to add on pieces at the deadline, which are going to be pieces that aren't going to be good, but they're going to be like Taiwan Walker type pieces, something like that. God, what a joke Marlins are.
Yeah, I think one of the more interesting memes that I've seen so far this offseason is a comparison between the Marlins' 2005 payroll and their payroll this year, and their payroll in 2005 was more than it is this year.
Yep. How can that be? Gosh, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. All right, let's move on. Finishing in fourth place in the NL East is a team that is still pretty young, and I think they're going to take another step forward this year, but I don't see them being as competitive as the other teams in the division, and that's the Washington Nationals. They added Nathaniel Lowe, Mike Soroka, and Josh Bell to their rotation and the lineup, but they still have a lot of young talent that hasn't been proven yet. Like I said, I could see them taking another step forward, like the Pirates or Reds this year, but their talent with Abrams, Dylan Cruz, Wood leading the way, they just have a lot to prove that if it works out, they could be a team to really play spoiler. Obviously, they added Nathaniel Lowe to help their veteran presence and stability in the lineup, and I thought that was a great move. And I think that's going to hurt the Rangers more than I think it's going to help the Nationals, but I think it's going to help the Nationals a decent amount. Now, it is a tough division. Hopefully, they can make enough noise in this division, but it really depends upon if that young lineup takes a step forward and really just pans out. Like Dylan Cruz could be a really good player moving forward, along with Wood, but there's just not a lot of promise yet. It hasn't happened yet. It's still wanting to happen. Pitching will get some reinforcements late in the season with Josiah Gray coming back after Tom and John surgery. Mackenzie Gore is their number one, and he hopes to make a case for an all-star team this year, but that's going to be hard given that the team isn't necessarily a great team, so he might not get enough run support. I wouldn't be surprised if this team made a move if they were hovering around 500 towards the trade deadline, but I don't see that happening as realistically as maybe they are hoping for. I think 500 is their ceiling, but they are heading in the right direction with it. I could see them possibly, I think a best case scenario is their offense starts producing and they go and trade for Dylan Cease. That's probably what I could see. Like, that's their best case scenario in my opinion, but there's not enough for me to believe in them to be the best, to be a wild card team this year. They're a year behind. Next year, maybe. Now you move on to the team that made the biggest splash in the offseason, and that's the New York Mets. And I'm not putting them here just because I hate the Mets. I actually believe that the Mets are the third best team in this division for multiple reasons. Now, obviously, they added Juan Soto. They added Clay Holmes, who is their number one starter now. But they lost JD Martinez, who isn't a huge loss, but he was a centerpiece for that team last year as a DH. The biggest thing, obviously, is Juan Soto. La-di-da, he's a Met, all right? He's going to pay him $50 million for the next 15 years. Congratulations. It might be 16, I don't know. Obviously, Juan Soto is one of the best players in baseball. But last year, the Mets got hot at the right time, and they found themselves in the NLCS. Retaining Alonso was big for them, as well as keeping their lineup having some more thump and more star power. But does it hold up once you get past Lindor, Alonso, and Soto? Mark Vientos is hoping to have a good sophomore year. Brennan Nimmo has been streaky and not necessarily the player that he once was. And Alvarez, who I absolutely loathe, said that they have a better lineup than the Dodgers. Now, when was the last time that the New York Mets were really cocky? Was it 2007 when they said that they were the team to beat, or or they just felt like they were a lot better, and then the Phillies came in and basically proved them wrong? That's kind of how I'm getting that feeling about this Mets team, is that they have all this kind of momentum, but I just don't see it. And the reason why is because of their pitching. Their lineup is good. You can't get behind it. Like, you can't deny that. They have Alonso, Lindor, Soto, Vientos, Nimmo, and Alvarez. They've got a good lineup. Like, I don't think it's the best lineup, but it's a good lineup. But their pitching is absolutely average, almost below average, in my opinion. Clay Holmes was one of their big signings in the offseason, and he's now their number one starting pitcher because Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, and Kodai Senga are not 100% ready to start the season. I think Senga is going to start the season, but he's not the number one, which I'm surprised given that they signed him to a big deal. They're not putting him as the number one. I don't see how having the Yankees closer from last year be your opening day starter is a team that you really expect to make the World Series, in my opinion. It just doesn't make sense. I think their starting pitching is average, and I don't remember the last time a team that relied solely on offense to make the postseason ever did well, because mostly pitching wins postseason, in my opinion. So they could be a 90-win team if everything works out and their pitching is just good enough, because their lineup is decent enough with adding Soto and Lindor and Alonso there. But I could also see them being around 500 as well, mostly because of their pitching. I think their offense is going to be fine. But to me, this team obviously adding Juan Soto is a huge thing. It's just for publicity and name recognition and adding that fear of like, oh crap, we're playing the Mets. But they got hot at the right time, and I just think their pitching is just absolutely average. And also, Edwin Diaz has lost some velocity on his fastball, which isn't good for the bullpen. So, are the Mets going to Met this year? Maybe not fully Met, but I think they're going to Met a little bit this year. And we can get more into that too, because that's probably a surprise to hear for some people. All right, moving on. Now, I could see either of these teams winning the division, but my team, the Phillies, I don't think they're going to win the division. I think that with the additions of Luzardo, it's not Romano, it's Romano, apparently, and Kepler were decent additions, but they weren't needle-moving additions, in my opinion. They lost Hoffman and Estevez, and everyone wanted to retain Hoffman, but then there were apparently some issues with his shoulder in the MRI, so obviously I wasn't as disappointed, maybe, when we didn't sign him, but I felt like the bullpen was the biggest thing we needed to retain. And I was on record saying that the offense was to blame last year more than the bullpen when the Phillies lost in the postseason, because the offense didn't show up. Obviously, the bullpen didn't show up either, but the bigger problem was the offense. And the only thing they added this offseason was Max Kepler, who is not a needle mover in any position. They're pretty set on their positions with their 1 through 6 on the lineup, but that's the biggest question mark going into the season, is how they're going to redo the lineup. Like I said, I know a lot about this team. I could do a whole podcast on this team. They probably lost more than they gained with Hoffman and Estevez, and they're kind of hoping to run it back. But Jesus Luzardo, who we saw give up a home run to Aaron Judge here earlier, who I blame the umpire, but Jesus Luzardo was kind of the talk of camp a little bit at the beginning because the dude has a huge ceiling and not necessarily a huge floor. Other than that in the acquisition of the offseason, there was a lot of talks of trading Bohm, Ranger Suarez, and Castellanos. But apparently nothing came close. Apparently the Phillies were asking too much. Now, like I said, I liked the Luzardo deal, but I don't know if it's enough to make me believe in this team again, who finished 500 after the All-Star break. They were the best team in baseball the first half of the season. But then after the All-Star break, they were 500. They kind of lost their mojo. And they were battling some injuries. Apparently Stott was battling an injury throughout the season. But they just were resting on their laurels, like, oh, well, as soon as we make the playoffs, we'll get there. And then they ran into a hot Mets team who showed them up. And that's the worst feeling, is losing to the Mets. Their pitching staff is one of the best in baseball. I don't know how anyone can deny that. They might be second to maybe the Dodgers or Mariners, but they're top three, in my opinion. And it's a good problem to have. The only thing that might be a problem is that Ranger Suarez had a back injury and might be on the IL to start the season, which means that Taijuan Walker has the fifth starting rotation spot, which is hell. That does not, I don't like that, because he should not be on this team. They're getting Andrew Painter back at the who will make his MLB debut sometime in the midseason because he's coming back from Tommy John. And hopefully with that and Luzardo adding to the rotation, it can add some young life to this team who is getting old, and the window is closing sooner than people probably would think that it is. Trey Turner needs to have a great year for this team to be anything close to division winner. Bryce Harper needs to be just Bryce Harper. Kyle Schwarber needs to be Kyle Schwarber. And Nick Castellanos needs to be Nick Castellanos. But there's some other guys that just need to step up. Alec Boehm needs to be better than what he was last year. Even though he was an all-star, he was pretty subpar the second half of the season. Trey Turner needs to be what we signed $27 million a year for Trey Turner to be. We need him to be a 20-30-30 guy. You just need him to be that. You can't have him be terrible in the defense at shortstop. So I could see them being division winners, but I could also see this team being hovering around 500 if things don't work out. Their pitching should carry them, but that's the thing. Their offense should carry them because of how big names there are in that offense. Hopefully they can be better than what I'm hoping them to be, but I just see them being second place in this division. And then that leads me to the Atlanta Braves, who I think are still the team to beat in this division. Even though the Phillies were the division winners last year, I think the Atlanta Braves have the most talent, even if their pitching is a little bit less than what it was last year. Spencer Strider's coming back, hopefully in late April, beginning of May, and the same thing with Ronald Acuna Jr. And I can't think of two bigger names that are coming back for a team than them. Acuna is an MVP, is a former MVP, and Spencer Strider is a Cy Young caliber pitcher. I can't think of two better players that are coming back for a team, and they will add so much more value to a team than those two players. Their lineup also is going to get back. Ozzie Albies fully healthy. And 1 through 7, I can't think of a better lineup than the Braves. They have Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Acuna, freaking Ozuna, Michael Harris II, and Murphy. That's a great lineup. I can't think of a better lineup, in my opinion. Now, Murphy's going to be out for a little bit in the beginning of the season because I think he did something to a broken bone or something like that. A rib. He broke his rib.
A cracked rib.
Yeah, cracked rib. So, obviously, they're going to be missing that. They also lost Max Fried, they lost Darnode, and they lost Charlie Morton. Now, they gained Jurickson Profar, who they're banking on to have another great year as he did his last year with the Padres. I think he'll fit well with the Braves because I don't think he's going to be relied upon too much in that lineup to be like an all-star caliber player, which he was last year. But because they have so much depth, he's an added piece that is going to be very beneficial for that lineup. Their biggest question is the pitching. Chris Sale came back to Cy Young form for them last year, winning that award. But he's another year older. They lost Fried and Morton free agency, and they're going to have to rely on some of the younger arms to be those pitchers with Bryce Elder and Smith Sawyer. Strider coming back. Hopefully he can be that player that they hope him to be and be that Cy Young caliber pitcher. But their lineup's going to carry them, and I still think they're the best team in that division. That bullpen kind of hit or miss with Raisel Iglesias. You never want to see Iglesias go up against Harper because Harper owns him. But that team has still got the most depth of any team, I think, in the division. Maybe the Phillies have more pitching depth, but their lineup's better than the Phillies, and I fully expect them to be winning that division this year.
Yeah, I guess my first impression when I look at the NL East is similar to yours, where it's like it's really going to come down to the top teams in the division, the three.
Yeah.
And I think it's an order very like 1, 2, 3. It's the same for me because for one, the Braves are just that team. When I see them, they're just solid. That's the only thing I could describe them as.
Yep.
Whereas the Phillies are like that great team on paper, and the Mets are that like team that has all this like potential, or at least built up potential through the New York media. The Braves just do their job.
Yeah.
They're the quieter of the three teams in my opinion. You don't hear much about the Braves, but they're the team that always just does well.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate to see the injuries that they've had, especially with Acuna and Strider, but hopefully they'll be back and healthy.
Yeah.
Because as you said, if they're all healthy and playing well, they could go out against LA.
Yeah, I don't want to face them if they're because can you imagine like LA like if they the Braves are a little bit above 500 and they're getting that momentum back with Strider and Acuna. Yeah. They go and get another starting pitcher with Sale, Strider, and maybe Cease or another starting pitcher. I don't want to face that team. Yeah. That's probably I think that could go toe to toe with the Dodgers 100%.
Yeah.
Like I think the ceiling, if they go get another starting pitcher, is way higher than the Phillies, in my opinion. With it, like I think the Phillies could be that team that they could win the division, but I think everything has to go well for them to win the division, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the Phillies, I mean, and I've said this before, but when I look at the Phillies, I just see a team that feels like they're good enough, but they're not really.
Yeah.
Like, they look at themselves, they look at their lineup with Harper and Schwarber and, Castellanos and all those other guys, and they're like, oh, we're good enough to win a division and make that push. But when they actually perform and go out there, they haven't done much the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I guess they're just content with the team that they have, and that's why they didn't make that much moves in the postseason because, like you said, they're resting on their laurels.
Yeah.
As for the Mets, it's a top-heavy squad, both in the pitching and in the lineup.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see Clay Holmes be the number one starter.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just used to seeing, I don't know, whenever I see a converted reliever become a starter, it usually doesn't end up very well.
Yeah.
The best example I could think of off the top of my head is Jabba Chamberlain. And even then, he was okay.
Yeah.
He should really just stay in the bullpen. That's where he was at.
Yeah.
I think the Mets have the most to gain, but also the most to lose.
I agree.
They definitely, especially now that they have Soto, if they struggle this year, New York media is going to be all over
because they have a target on their back now.
Yes.
As soon as they sign Soto, they're like, oh, huge target.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the Mets are going to be a good team. They gained the momentum last year. They beat the Phillies in the playoffs, but they just don't have the depth in the pitching with it. Like if they have to burn their bullpen all the time until the pitchers get with Minaya and Montas getting healthy. And Minaya and Montas haven't been proven to be consistent throughout the regular season. Minaya had a great year last year good year last year, and he pitched well in the playoffs and just solidified himself as an annoying pitcher to face. But they kind of got lucky at the end of the year. Kind of like what the Phillies did in 2022, but the Phillies had, I think, a little more depth than what the Mets have this year, in my opinion. Could I see the Mets winning a division? Yeah, I could see them winning a division.
I could see any of them winning a division.
But I think that the Mets have a lot, like you said, I think you put it right. They have a lot more to lose than the other two teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the overall analysis of our division winners that we have here. Do we want to go through who we think are going to be the wild card team? So obviously we have I have the Dodgers, Brewers, and Braves as my division winners. And I have my wild card teams are, this is in order, by the way. This is what I think. I have the Phillies, and I have the Diamondbacks, and then I have the Mets. And I know I just kind of crap talked on the Mets a little bit, but I think they have enough more than the other teams to make it than the other teams do.
I would agree with that. Yankees, Royals, Mariners were my division winners.
Yeah.
And this is in no particular order for me, but I think the AL Central is going to be that division that has 3 playoff teams coming out of it. So I think it's going to be the Guardians, the Tigers, and I'm going to throw the Red Sox in there as the third team going in.
The Red Sox kind of have that target on their back too. I feel like the Red Sox were that team that they made. They got Bregman, they got Crochet, got Bueller. They kind of got that. They have a lot to lose, but they also have a lot to gain as well with that team. Do you want to predict who's going to be your AL champion?
I will say I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to pick the Yankees.
Okay.
Despite the injuries, I feel like they still have enough talent to get there. And I don't have a team other than a team that might get really hot like Kansas City or maybe even the Tigers that I would be afraid of in the American League right now.
Yeah. The only thing with the Yankees is that the rotation.
Yes.
Because their offense hopefully is better and more consistent than last year. Because they had 1-2 punches, Soto and Judge. But they're a little more depth in the offense. And we had Devin Williams backing down the bullpen this year, which is a huge plus. But losing Cole, like you have Fried and you have Rodon as the 1-2, which is a good 1-2. It's a really good 1-2. But after that, it's kind of, you don't know what you're going to expect with it until you get Heel back and Schmidt back. So hopefully you guys can tread above water for a little bit. And I could definitely, I still think the Yankees are the best team overall in the AL.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a rematch of the World Series then, because I think the Dodgers are going to be in they're going to win the pennant. I can't pick against them. I picked against them the last couple years, and now I just can't.
Yeah.
Like I could see the only teams that I could see going up against the Dodgers are the Braves and the Phillies. Yeah. Those are the only 2 teams where I could see them losing too. I don't think the Mets have enough in terms of pitching to beat the Dodgers. I don't think the Padres or the Diamondbacks have enough to beat the Dodgers. I just don't. Maybe I could see the Padres if everything worked out, maybe, but it's just nothing's really selling me on any of those teams. And no team in the NL Central, I think, has anywhere close to the power that could stop the Dodgers.
What's changed about the Dodgers is that they won. They got over the hump. I know they won in 2020. Thought it was a very weird year.
Yeah.
And in the years before 2024, they disappointed in the postseason. There's no 2 ways around it. What was it, 2022, I think, or 2021, where they won 108 games?
2022, because when the Padres beat them, and then the Padres ended up facing the Phillies.
Yes, exactly. So getting over that hump is really important, and I think that's the catalyst to. We might see a dynasty in the making, really, in LA at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's good to have a villain in baseball, but it's going to be annoying if no team can even rival them with it, just because they're like, all right, whatever. It's just the Dodgers are going to win the division. They're going to win it all. You know, I want them to, like, I don't want them to leak oil, but I want them to maybe have a team or 2 that starts to strike fear in them over the course of the season. You know, like it'd be nice to have the Phillies be like, they get hot and they the Dodgers kind of get a little bit afraid, but it's kind of hard to be afraid when you have that much talent.
Well, do you want at least a bit of good news about the Phillies?
What?
As I was kind of checking in on the game, the Yankees were up 7-0 on the Phillies in the 9th inning. It's 8-7 now. Phillies.
Oh, look at that! Oh, what? 8-7 Phillies.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Spring training matters, people.
Yes. Especially in this apartment.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about that I mentioned earlier, how many teams are going to finish below, or how many teams are going to finish with 100 losses?
How many teams?
Because I think there could be 4 teams that finish with 100 losses.
Well, let's get at least 2 of them out of the way. You said the Marlins, and I said the White Sox.
Yes.
Those are the 2 teams.
Guaranteed, both teams 100 losses.
Yes.
Guaranteed. I could also, sorry, were you going to say?
You go ahead.
I could also see the Rockies.
I could see that too.
And I could also see the Cardinals losing 100 games. Like, there's nothing about those teams that is like, yeah, they're going to be a good team. They're going to be a bad team.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of hard to have, especially with the other teams being so good, with the Braves, Phillies, Brewers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, all being like pretty good teams. Are the the Pirates, Cubs, are they going to step up and be like bigger teams, and they're going to like really demolish and dominate the Rockies, Marlins, and
Cardinals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's just a part of me that still can't comprehend the Cardinals losing 100 games in a year, though I can see it. The only other team I could think of that could lose 100 games is the Angels, and that's if Trout gets hurt again. If he gets hurt again, I can see him losing 100 games this year.
That was my other team that I was going to say is the
Yeah.
Angels. Yeah. They just suck.
Yeah.
It's really a shame. I don't know exactly what needs to be fixed with it. Like, other than him just moving and getting out of there.
Yeah. I think they just need to let him go. They need to trade him and really start that rebuild.
Yeah.
Because he's the one player, as good as he's been and how he's been the face of that franchise, you got to get rid of him. You got to let him go.
Yeah.
No matter how good he is. If you really want to get this team going again, I think Trout has to leave.
Yeah. I think I did a hot take not too long ago where I was like, Mike Trout's going to be on the Phillies by the midseason or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen again. But yeah, all right. I think that's good. I think it's good where we left it up right there. Those are our predictions. Take it to the bank. Whatever you want to do with it, it's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to win the World Series. We just know who's going to be in the World Series.
Yes.
There'll be more podcasts about that. But that was a lot of information for everyone.
Yeah.
We are glad that we were able to bless you with that. And, we will have plenty. Also, happy opening day. If you're listening to this on opening day,
Yes.
we're excited. This is our third season that we're starting doing this. So we are excited about getting more content and more topics to talk. Because every year there's new stuff to talk about.
Absolutely.
And more exciting stuff. We have guests that we want to have on. Obviously, we've been a little bit. We had one at the beginning of March, podcast at the beginning of March, but I've been sick. It's just there's always seems to be something that gets in the way.
Yes.
But we definitely have plans, and we hope that you're enjoying listening to the Junk Baller podcast. So, hope you enjoyed it this time, and we'll catch you later.
Catch you later.